Okay, I have 1 hour. You know, I mean, like I said, the reptilian part of the mind and the being a joker, being a person that like laughs. I don't know, right? I can't speak on one idea or the other. Like, I genuinely can't. I can't make a conclusion. Um, because some of these things I'm saying, like in a sense, like I hope the world doesn't work this way. Because if it does, then you know, anybody who has mental health problems, it could be exacerbated and way worse. Like I get it. Okay, male aggression. We all know this real that men, are more, you know, will likely fight more, and there's more violence. I mean, it's this stuff should be common sense. I'm hoping it's not. This isn't the first time people are hearing this. They're surprised that oh yeah, it's a female world and the education system caters to women instead of men and whatnot. But if something weren't true, then I wouldn't be saying it like on video, especially in the dire moments of 2026. Um, Because I mean, what's happening in Canada in this time period is very very sad. Pedophiles and AI, kiddie porn, AI taking over. Men being charged with like child porn, while there's homeless people and overdoses and you know terrible weather, food, housing, shortages. Granted, I would have done everything in my power to offer the free housing, and I've said it, and I feel terrible about it because even if I didn't know the person, I know my parents could have provided the housing. Excuse me. I know my parents could have provided the housing, and it just seems like my entire life, at some point, is now just covering up for myself for those 14, 15 years. I was ignorantly bliss and really thought I was safe, or like I thought or felt a certain way. I never knew my life would take certain turns, and things would turn out this way. I'm sure to some extent it is like a mentorship thing, like, oh, there's no one to mentor these people, this person, that person. And obviously there's movies mocking mentorship, like Avatar, like I'm talking about Last Airbender. Even every movie, every TV show really has like this archetype they call the mentor. And I get it, like we all want, like they need, like the actors are paid and they want to portray this, and I guess you bought in the movie, and I mean it is just a concept, right? I'm just being objective, a concept, but still, like if a person has a serious mentor, like there's a serious person that's mentoring them, it's not really correct to to have that mentor. It's not okay that the mentor exists in the first place, in that way, where they have a movie and they try to mock the actual struggles that people in the real world have. They disregard them, things that might take years to overcome, 10, 20, 30 years. And it's a problem, and I see why people might look at me and other people like they uh because it's like I had it easy, right? Like I only had to leave my house, only to deal with controversy. And of course, maybe this technology and all this not only corrupts, but the cost to create such a thing, the amount of manpower, the amount of hours, the amount of struggle, the amount of people that got screwed over. I don't know. I can't make a conclusion, with very little information and not knowing what was going on. But what I do know is that the technology corrupts and power corrupts, and I would have done things differently. I would have never known this stuff. And again, because this stuff all comes by chance, right? The iPhone came in development by chance. The MacBook Pro, Facebook, all these things came about by chance. They didn't exist before. Um, they didn't exist before. And maybe it was just the guy was just intellectual. Maybe they came from a different dimension, and their only purpose was to develop Apple and then, like, disappear like in thin air. because there are people like that, like, you know, like, and as I said, like, you know, as a plumber, I would as a plumber, I would do my job and I wouldn't say anything, and I wouldn't like I would go to work and go home, right? Because the same way in high school, the same way in elementary school, and had I known better, I would have never said anything at all. I don't even, it's for me, it's just seems so crazy, or it seems so evil or wicked that they would build a school, and it's like all these things that are occurring in the future somehow resonate to the past, where, like, you know, even the guy's name is Anthony, right? Or St. Gregory School, and I know who it's in reference to, and I'm not going to say names, I'm not going to tell you who, only because it's not convenient, it's not comfortable for me to tell you who those people are and why these names are significant, out of privacy reasons, privacy, yeah. Again, these conversations are absolutely tragic. You know, it's the worst part is the year is 2026. I'm making these videos. I don't even know who's gonna watch. Probably a person whose life was ruined by the system, and they're criticized, they're hated upon. Like, and I get it. Again, like, I don't even know how to interact with the world. I don't know what you can or can't say. I don't know if, like, how to even, like, because I mean, like, again, if I'm an unnecessary person, I'm just an extra person in this matrix, like, so be it, right? You know, there's just an extra cog in the machine that they just didn't need. I would have offered the free housing. Now granted, I know that, you know, like, well, for one, I mentioned, like, you know, people driving somewhere and hustle culture. I mean, we all know it's all bullshit, right? And we already know that it doesn't work. But also, you know, people obviously will help their friends, right? Obviously, they're going to help their friends. You know, a lot of inconvenient, uncomfortable conversations. But obviously, people will help their friends. And obviously, all these things that I'm talking about, to some extent, it's like they've all happened before. And I'm not even saying in a sense like, oh yeah, it's happened in the past 50 years. No shit, it's happened in the past 50 years. I'm talking thousands of years. I'm talking in a different dimension, where a nuclear war actually did occur, where you know, it's like, you know, these people, like the Jews especially, like, okay, they get these 613 laws, allegedly by, I think it was Moses, or, you know, 10 Commandments, and it was Abraham or something. It's not really fair to the average person, right? Especially if they maybe were a Christian only following the 10 Commandments, or if they were, they just didn't know, right? Granted, I don't tell people what to do. I don't say you should be following 613 laws and, you know, all that. And also, I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's like these people, everybody keeps coming from the Europe, or like Central Asia or Asia, and they keep coming to North and South America, and they bring all the problems with them here. And then you don't even need me to fucking say the next, right? You already know that the result is ugly. You know the result is ugly. You know, you don't need me to say it through the camera here to know that the result is ugly, and there's like a ton of conflicts and problems and all these things. And I with my maturity, you know, I had to uplift myself. I had to uplift myself and say, you know what, I'm not going to let these circumstances define me. I'm not going to let my dad's childishness and his infancy and his trauma and, you know, his problems, I'm not going to let that define me. I'm not going to let him, because the thing is, with my maturity and my choices, right, I see through the bullshit. I see that this guy, you know, he chose his parents over his wife. He never helped anyone, any of the homeless people. And actually, I remember, and again, people are going to be fucking like, oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. No, all these things matter. All these things mattered where my mom insulted me. I can forgive her, but I won't forget. And it's because I won't forget, I still don't like my mom. I still don't respect her because she doesn't respect me. She doesn't see me as equal. She doesn't respect me. She doesn't take me seriously like a lot of people do. They don't take me seriously. Okay, fine, then we're not cool and we're not on good terms. And I don't give a fuck, right? I don't give a fuck. And I know you've been having fucking people helping you all along. And so you can fuck right off, right? And I'm not gonna fucking babysit and deal with this person because they're just too stupid, they're just unfathomably stupid, like my parents, that is, like now that I'm in the position that I'm at, right? I mean, it's terrible, it's horrible, because it's like, oh, if we had to dehumanize someone, if we had to blame someone, who would it be, right? Would it be Jennifer Pan? If we can, if we needed meat and there was no cattle, there was no goat, or what is it, pig? If you're Jewish, you don't eat pig, but then you're taking the people that you've dehumanized in the past. Vietnam, right? We know Americans dehumanized Vietnam. We know that they sent their people there, and after the country got destroyed, they sent their people here, right? And Jennifer Pan's parents being strict or not, I don't know, right? I don't know all the facts of the case. I don't know, like, and by that I mean, like, I don't know, to the extent that, like, I don't know to the extent that, like, like I don't know the extent that, like, if Vietnamese culture is strict on education or not, right? I can't pass judgment because I don't know enough about that. But what I do know is that, if it's like by automatic command, right? If there's no meat and Jennifer Pan, murders her parents, and, money's a thing and a problem, and my mom doesn't help her, doesn't provide housing. Granted, my mom needed to provide food. Because, okay, like, I'm willing to, like, let go of myself and be like, okay, I don't matter, right? Somebody else matters, and it's because they matter, I'm willing to, give up, I'm willing to give up, my personhood, my safety. And you can quantify safety. I mentioned you can trade your safety for money. The ability for me to talk right now without anybody interrupting, without anybody coming in, and the ability for me to talk without anybody interrupting, without anybody causing issues, without anybody disagreeing with what I say openly, or preventing me from talking in one way or another. That's a luxury. That's something people would pay for money, right? They would pay for money and this place, this space, and I'm in a public park and there's nobody here to stop me from talking. I'm gonna be talking, and I'm gonna keep talking, because some people are like, oh, it's a simulation and this world is just, you shouldn't take it seriously and all that. But if you don't take it seriously, you don't take one thing seriously, you don't take any of it seriously. Or you take one thing, you take that one thing you take seriously, well, then you take everything seriously. And I take everything seriously now, right? I don't go on vacations. I wouldn't be leaving my house. I wouldn't ever do any of that shit. And I feel awful, like, the fact that people act upon, like, a certain impulse to, procreate, right? That's not related to me, that's not something that's something that is more or less biological, right? And I don't hate on people for that, right? Like, I kind of get it, like, if they couldn't help it, they couldn't help it. However, like, I mean, my mom, right? It's like she didn't really care, and she travels to these places, and she doesn't pay attention to the homeless, and she doesn't do any of these things. And so the conversation has to go back to housing, right? Because you didn't provide the housing, you didn't help the homeless, and this is why it stresses me out. Because how can I get past the fact that you don't have basic human empathy, and then you want to talk about molecular biology and chemistry, biochemistry, advanced functions, all these other conversations? And I think those things they're important, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm sure there's some, valid knowledge, and curing truly uncurable diseases that, even money can't cure, and, you do everything you can and there's no cure. But that's rarely the case, right? We know that it's rarely the case that, that those are the way that things are. We know that rarely are things that way, right? Where, like, where there's, like, a curable or an incurable disease, and, whatever, right? I don't want to talk about like, evolutionary descendants of mankind, mantids or reptilians, and then, the mockery films, the ant bully ants, and the third that I'm not even going to mention. But the point still stands, right? The point still stands. I feel awful. I feel awful. I feel awful because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it, and we already know that, like, these elites are one thing, right? Whether or not they're gonna pass their creeds, being honest when I say that, whether or not they pass their creeds on to other people, and this, that, and the third, I can't speak on that, right? Like, and by creeds I mean like sacrificial practices and worship to like demons like Baal or Moloch, for example. I mean, I don't get a kick about talking about these things, right? Like, this channel isn't created to create a kick. Again, this channel is not for entertainment. This channel is not, it's PG content, emotionally sensitive, and I sincerely hope that someone who's in dire need to hear these things, they hear this, right? Because maybe it could be the difference between life and death. Maybe it could be the difference between, like, a good life and a difficult one. I don't know, right? Like my attention span is not that low that I make these videos, and the person figuratively, like, the thing is, like, I understand some people emotionally will never be able to understand the things I'm talking about, maybe because the human biology literally has its limitations, and nobody asked to fucking deal with all this fucking modern bureaucratic complicated bullshit, right? The real world is so fucking complicated. Like, life has become so complicated that it's just, I get it. I deal with these things personally on my own because I choose that. I think that my life is better off that I do, because it bothers me. All of these things bother me on a very personal level, because I have no idea what's going on, and I have no control. I don't have control. I don't have control over my parents. I don't have control over my mom, my dad, my sister. I don't have control over myself sometimes. I don't I don't have control over myself. And I lost this control because I gave it up. I gave it up when I went on those vacations. I almost gave up my own personhood, right? What do I mean by personhood? I mean self-respect, my ability to make choices for myself. And if it's to avoid doing this shit in the real world, that if it's to avoid a credence in the real world, that confrontation like this in the real world, that somebody watches this, and instead of hunting me down like the way some people are, they just watch the video, they get an explanation, and they move on. I don't know, because again, if the person is bored and they just want to get a kick at someone and see them react, see them get scared, obviously, like, you don't have to do much, right? Like, and like the guy who said about the prison, it's like, they make a victim of the talking type, right? It's the person that's talking that gets picked on and gets picked apart, because they're talking, and then suddenly pick at them, and then they get a little scared, and then everybody's picking them apart like vultures, and then that's it, right? And all is said and done, and these conversations and this this truth is not convenient. This is the worst possible means of description. Like, the state of the world is so terrible that I don't even have words sometimes. I don't have words to put it, because if you take your life seriously, and if you care about yourself, if you take your life seriously and you care about yourself, you're gonna be you're going to be just dealing with what you're dealing with, and you're just going to be straight up and honest with yourself, right? Because the moment, you're born, right, that's immediately a drain on the system just by you breathing air, I think. Like I don't know, again, like walking properly is walking properly has been quantified, right? Talking properly is quantified, these things have been quantified, right? If there's nobody there, like in a Toastmasters meeting, if there's nobody there to hold you accountable, if there's nobody there to keep a civil discourse, then the civil discourse can't happen, right? There won't even be a chance for people to even communicate. And at that point, that's where the world could end, right? So again, what's at stake here is not just the present, right? Okay, present people and all that. What's at stake is also the past. The past is at stake because we're no longer going to be able to we're no longer going to be able to we're not communicating normally as we used to. And and again, like my dad's actions don't reflect my own, right? I'm personally a vegetarian. I'm personally, I don't eat meat. I don't I don't eat meat. I don't I don't enjoy the technology. I don't enjoy any of this bullshit. And I know the truth, right? I know the truth. If you truly live in the real world with every moment that led up to 2026, right? You understand the severity, the sensitivity. And again, I wouldn't put anybody through it, right? If there was a means that it was just me experiencing this and I'm keeping back, a whole bunch of demons and a whole bunch of problems that not only me but other people experience, then that's what I would do, right? The human condition is nothing but struggle and difficulty in 2026. And my life is a hell, right? I'm a lonely ass person. Like, nobody respects me. Not even the people that I call my friends respect me. Like, I opened up my own family doctor clinic. Do you think anybody showed up? Heck no. People don't respect me. They don't they don't care about me, they don't respect me. And I mean, I don't know about diseases and other people and mixing of ethnicities and races and even the concept of tragedy that, was commodified and turned into a movie or a TV show or whatever. Okay then, right? Okay. Again, I don't control behavior. I don't know these people. I don't know what's going on anymore, right? I mean, I think, second coming of Christ and aliens, demons, Jesus, and Atlantis, all these things all coming to a close. I think that's what's going on, right? It's just the world, the way that the world is right now. The world can't function the way that it does right now. The way the world functions right now, it can't function like that any longer. The world has reached its limits, right? And these videos, they don't appeal to a certain person. And whether people want to argue that it's the grasshoppers versus the ants and alien species and all this, I pray to the highest God, that is not the case. Because if it is, then that's a psychological black hole. It's a psychological black hole because it's like this never-ending war, and especially the white people who would worship a skinny, hairless, pale person per se. I mean, I'm just making assumptions. I have no idea. Making assumptions based off this video. And I mean, obviously it could be an evolutionary thing where people of the past saw this and they worshipped it. I don't know, right? And the thing is that the struggles that I experience as an average human being to try to get a degree of any kind, it could have even been a sociological degree. I don't understand why I can't obtain it. I do everything I can to obtain it, and I still can't obtain it. And not unless if I was, one of those so-called shape-shifting reptiles who can just shape-shift into the role and be done with it, end of story, end of conversation. Obviously, I know, and even the shape-shifting reptiles would know that it doesn't have to get to that point. We don't need to go there in order for me to get the degree, and even live a fulfilling life. It only would take my dad to stop being stubborn and to just grow the fuck up and eat a vegetarian diet and stop driving and stop watching the goy slop, right? He watches goy slop, he watches all this goy slop and whatever, and so he lives his life, right? He lives his life, he lives it the way he wants to live it. And no, he won't see people. He won't see any people. He won't see any bad people. Yeah, that's granted. That's for sure. That's like a guarantee. But he won't see good people either. His friends, his people that he called friends. Again, I don't know every story. I'm not saying that he's wrong in every case, my dad, so-called. And I'm not saying that animals and people are the same and you're eating an animal, so you're eating a person. No, I'm not making double conclusions or single conclusions, right? I feel terrible again, I feel awful, because these videos are posted too late. This is all after the fact. This is all after the fact that Putin threatened the world with a nuke. This is all after the fact that, Epstein files are released and we know about, like, Ghislaine Maxwell and the others, right? It loses all merit and all value to be so concerned in the year 2026. Hell, it makes the people, the TCAT people, like, Jay Refner and I think it was Howard or something. The other guy was Jay Refner. Rolando Resta Cruz. I mean, I think the point is clear, but it makes these people like, Rolando, Jay Refner, the other guy, whatever his name was, it makes the other guy's name like it makes the guy, his name, was it Rolando Resta Cruz, or was it like Rolando, Jay Refner, or was it John Pierre Michael Weary? Like, all these people makes them look like saints. And again, like, I'm walking here and this is all individual to individual communication, so people being good to each other one-on-one, and people of the same age range, I guess, maturity in my case, because everybody thinks I'm immature. My friends, at least, they think I'm as mature as a 13-year-old. So be it, Again, I'm not saying to follow what I say and do, and I'm not saying that I'm proud to be immature, but I'm willing to sacrifice that if it means that somebody else can have that intellect and actually produce something with not only that they're in some school and they're earning a degree, but that they produce something with that degree. And unfortunately, that's what it's come to, because I'm just one in 20,000 people, right? Excuse me. I get it. If my parents were serious, they wouldn't have me and my sister. They wouldn't have children. They wouldn't live the way they live. They wouldn't eat meat. They wouldn't be talking the way they were talking. I get that, and I can see it. It's a shame, and I see why the Jews or the Indians, they have this caste system, because you just see what the lower castes do, and obviously you can minimize it and you can be like, oh yeah, it's immature, and I already all said, but my behavior and my actions could just be a reflection of my parents, right? Not everything that I say, especially as a child, reflects who I really am. Some of it reflects my parents, that bad parenting, right? All it does is just show that there's bad parenting, and I you know, like, okay, I can feel bad for these people, like, you know, okay, I feel bad for these people, these addicts, you know, and they bite at the hand that feeds them, and I feel bad for them, so I'm like, oh, you know what, you know, I feel bad for them, so I'm gonna change, you know, I feel bad for them, so I feel like I'm gonna, you know, be immature, and, you know, even hell, even let them, you know, get the degree and get the job, and not get it, and hell, I'll even, you know, I'll take my own death so that this addict, you know, could live a better life, right? I mean, it takes situational awareness to even build these conclusions, some kind of conscious level, some kind of conscious integrity, self-integrity. If I had no integrity at all, I'd be like, oh no, you know, I just want the degree, and I'm gonna be like every other international student, come here, get the degree, and have children, right? And then I'd end the conversation there, and I'd be as shallow as I could be, and just let all this shit continue. But I won't, right? But I won't, because the things that happen to me and my peers are, I'm talking more about myself, really. The things that happened are unacceptable. The things that happen are unacceptable. They're not okay, right? And it's not just me. It's the entire system. It's the person's parents. The whole thing falls apart. It doesn't actually work. It's not a means of living. And the psychosis that I live through, you know, I'm sure other people have some level of it as well, because it's just a fucking mess. You don't even know who you're talking to. Everybody's telling you to listen to them and to trust them, whether it's a life coach or some actor, or some athlete, and like, it's just some mass psychosis. Like, you don't even know what's going on. You don't even know who's talking, if they're talking to you or whatever. And I'm in a reality of my own, right? And I don't expect anybody to know who I am by making these videos, and I don't want them to know. I don't want them to just suddenly hear my voice and already know who it is and whatever, right? Especially at 25, like, you know, I'm well mature past a certain point. And I feel awful, right? I feel awful every single day for the comments that I made, and all, even if I didn't mean it, because I know in 2026 the world can't afford a person like me that messes up and fucks up, and having someone else to, you know, clean up and, you know, after my garbage. And this is why I hate my parents. I can't stand them. I don't believe that they're real people. I don't believe how they function the way they do. And they have the gall to judge me. They have the gall to criticize me and criticize my lifestyle, criticize my garbage, criticize my beard. And I'm not having it, right? If I was having it, I would still put up with it. But I'm willing to take all these little things if it just means that some other person can have some intellect and have, you know, that they're non-degenerate, right? Because I believe, you know, in the opposite. And it takes mental capacity to believe or not believe in something. And I'm surprised that, again, it's come to this, that I have to say these things, you know, and a lot of people will dismiss it. They'll take advantage of this information, and they'll just use it as knowing that there's another insecure and fearful and lost person. And these are all the corners. These are all the things that certain people avoid entirely. They avoid all these things because their parents already knew. Their parents were initiated into the cult, into the Freemason cult, or into the Judaic practices, whatever have you. And my dad is just too much of a nutter. He's just too fucking dumb. He's too fucking dumb. Like, he's just, I would have never answered my phone. I'm just so shocked he's such a goy, right? I'm just so shocked that he, after all this time, after all the events in the world, he still sees the world the same way he did 10, 15 years ago. And that's the problem, right? And I get it. Like, everybody has a chance to be a child. I was a child, heck, once, right? Before I, decided, oh yeah, it's my responsibility to do this and to talk like this. But, I make these videos because I don't have a quality of life regardless. I don't have a quality of life regardless. My quality of life is zero. It's terrible. I live a terrible life. My parents are already divorced. I already know how all this shit fucking ends. So why the fuck would I, why the fuck would I, give it another round for myself, right? Why the hell would I ever get married myself if my parents are already divorced? I mean, that should be a bad sign for me, right? Excuse my French. I mean, again, these are grim topics. These are grim conversations. These are very sad conversations. They're, coming from a person who's dealing with the world up front and honest, right? I don't travel, I don't go anywhere, and I don't do any of that shit anymore because the situation in the world has become so serious that the world can't afford such a thing, right? The world can't afford more stupidity than it already has. Especially for someone who's going to be putting everything, like all their information and everything they're saying and doing on social media. Like, again, if a person can help it and not do that, obviously I give my props to them, right? Obviously respect, right? And I don't ask that, we judge people, because most of my channel is just me judging myself and judging the world, and providing full, absolute, non-filtered criticism, right? Because that's all I can do, right? when literally every little thing that we knew is now being questioned, and nobody trusts anything, and nobody trusts anybody, and everybody thinks they're right, and because human beings are human beings, they obviously all think they're right. They obviously want to be right? Like, I'm not gonna, debate that human psychology, basic human psychology. I mean, if these things my mom and dad never knew, they never, like, even psychologically even thought of, I just don't understand what was going through their minds that they thought, oh, you know what, I'm gonna be a parent. I just don't see the logical connection. I don't see the logic, right? And if I'm just a thought, like, I'm just one of the thoughts that, the actual people of the actual reality, get, right? My voice sounds childish. No, I'm being dead serious. Like, I could be one of the thoughts that, like, the actual people in the reality have. So I don't influence reality because I'm not in the reality enough, if that makes any sense at all. But, dead serious, I'm saying that, I have no quality of life to begin with. I don't intend on complaining about it to the helpline for the millionth time. I don't intend on elaborating on it. I only intend to just say it, that, I don't have a quality of life, and I can't, because my parents were divorced from the get-go. When my parents divorced from the get-go, and it's because they divorced from the get-go, and because every day was chaotic, and I had no idea what was going on, and everything is simultaneously happening at once, and Jennifer Pan, and arguing over, like, little